Imagine giving up one of the most dominant defensive players in the entire NFL, a monster who's only 25 years old, at the absolute peak of his career, and still walking away from that deal with a smile on your face. It sounds crazy, my friend. It sounds like the kind of decision that would make any fan want to storm into the front office. But that's exactly the scenario a well-respected analyst put on the table this week, and once you understand the cold logic behind it, you realize it might not be crazy at all. It might be the most calculated move the Eagles could make while looking toward the future. If you're a die-hard Eagles fan, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel, because this is one of those debates that separates the emotional fan from the fan who understands how a dynasty is built. You're going to find out why Philadelphia's biggest defensive jewel has become, at the same time, the front office's biggest financial dilemma, and why the 2027 calendar might be the secret key to all of it. Stick with me, because this story is pure behind-the-scenes strategy. Let me set the scene. The Eagles have in their hands a defensive tackle who is already considered one of the best at the position on the planet. At just 25 years old, he's eligible for a contract extension that could easily blow past $30 million per season. The problem is that Philadelphia, that team built brick by Howie Roseman to compete for Super Bowls, might simply not be willing to pay that price. And the most striking part, a solution might be right around the corner. The name of this player at the center of the storm is Jalen Carter. And to understand why this whole conversation got started, you need to look at what happened in Tennessee. The Titans just handed defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons the first contract in NFL history, with $100 million fully guaranteed for a player at that position. It was a 3-year extension, $105,800,000, with an average that tops $35 million per season. That's the new ceiling of the market. And the detail that sends a chill down the Eagles' spine is this. In ESPN's polls conducted with executives, coaches, and scouts, Simmons appears just one spot ahead of Carter. In other words, if you want to keep Carter, get the checkbook ready, because his extension is going to land right in that multi-million-dollar neighborhood. And that's where the squeeze lives. The Eagles don't only have Carter to pay. Philadelphia is a team loaded with homegrown players who are also in line waiting for their big contracts. When you have a roster of that caliber, full of young talent, there comes a moment when the salary cap math simply doesn't work out for everybody. Someone is going to have to go. And when you put on the scale a player who costs more than $35 million a year against the possibility of getting someone cheaper and equally promising, the tab starts to weigh in a way that emotion doesn't like to admit. And to give you a sense of just how much this market exploded, a little historical context is worth it. Before Simmons' blockbuster deal, the highest paid defensive tackle in the entire league was Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs, with an average close to $31,800,000 per year. In one swing, Simmons jumped to more than $35 million annually, and also broke the historic barrier of $100 million fully guaranteed, something no player at the position had ever managed before. In other words, the negotiating floor for the best tackles on the planet rose brutally in a matter of weeks, and Carter, being valued at practically the same level as Simmons by the league's experts, is going to sit down at the negotiating table with that giant number as his starting point. It's not about Carter being greedy. It's simply about the entire market readjusting upward overnight, and Philadelphia being forced to decide whether or not to join this very expensive dance. Now, to be fair, it's impossible to downplay the size of this player's talent. In ESPN's polls, Carter was voted the third best defensive tackle in the entire league for the second consecutive year, behind only names like Leonard Williams and Simmons himself. He has racked up 13.5 sacks across his first 3 seasons in an Eagles uniform and has already been selected to 2 Pro Bowls. A veteran defensive coach, quoted by ESPN, defined Carter in brutal terms. He said he's a problem, a game wrecker, someone whose presence you feel on the field all the time. We're talking about a genuinely elite talent. That's not up for debate. But then why would the Eagles consider parting ways with a player like that? That's where things get more complex. First, there's the injury issue. In the 2025 season, Carter missed 6 games hurt, playing in only 11, with 3 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. He did stand out by batting down 6 passes, tied for the most among defensive tackles, but his production as a quarterback pressurer was modest. ESPN reporter Jeremy Fowler himself admitted that Carter is one of the toughest evaluations among the top 10. An immense talent, 2 Pro Bowls, but with pass rush prowess that still leaves something to be desired. And on top of all that, There are rumors of off-field concerns that could push the front office away from such a long-term commitment. It's not a simple picture, and this is precisely where the most interesting part of the story comes in, the clever twist that NFL Films analyst Greg Cosell put into play. On a podcast, Cosell was talking about how the defensive lineman class of the 2027 draft is absurdly strong, one of the best in recent cycles. And, without anyone asking, he himself brought up Carter's name and the Eagles. Cosell raised the question that's worth gold. Does a team like Philadelphia perhaps decline to pay Carter precisely because it looks at that crop of rookies arriving in 2027 and thinks, we can grab a guy there? That's the kind of calculation franchises make, looking 2 drafts ahead. Cosell acknowledged that Carter, at his best, is probably one of the 3 or 4 best tackles in the league, but the reasoning is pure management. Why pay a fortune for a veteran when you can have youth, talent, and, above all, a dirt-cheap rookie contract at the same position? And if you think nobody would pay a steep price to pry Carter out of the Eagles' hands, brace yourself. The respected analyst Bill Barnwell, also of ESPN, recently put together a table of trade values, mapping out which players on each roster are worth first-round picks. And guess what? Barnwell valued Jalen Carter and cornerback Quinyon Mitchell as the 2 most valuable trade assets on the entire Eagles roster, each one worth no less than 2 first-round picks. That's more than quarterback Jalen Hurts himself, more than tackle Jordan Mailata, more than receiver Devonta Smith. 2 first-round picks for a 25-year-old defensive tackle, top 3 at the position, would be a gigantic haul. And, on top of that, it would hand the Eagles exactly the draft capital needed to reload the defensive line with that younger, cheaper talent Cosell described. Now, to keep our feet on the ground, because this part is essential. None of this is a done deal. It's analyst speculation. It's a scenario drawn up on paper, not a concrete move in progress. And there's a pretty solid other side to this coin. Jalen Carter, at his best, is a force of nature, the kind of player who wins playoff games on his own, the kind of piece entire teams dream of having in the middle of the defensive line. Betting that some rookie, no matter how promising, is simply going to replicate the impact of a top 3 player in the league is an extremely risky wager. The draft is a lottery. For every hit, there are dozens of rookies who never pan out. Trading the certainty of a proven star for the hope of an untested talent can easily turn into a front office's biggest regret. So, in the end, what we have here is one of the most fascinating storylines of the entire NFL offseason. On one side, the loyalty and proven talent of a 25-year-old jewel. On the other, the merciless math of the salary cap, a tempting crop of rookies, and a front office known precisely for making cold, aggressive decisions when it comes to building a championship team. Howie Roseman has proven more than once that he's not afraid to go against the fan base's heart in the name of strategy. And that's why this Jalen Carter soap opera promises to be one of the hottest topics in Philadelphia going forward. So I want to know your opinion. Would you pay the fortune Jalen Carter is going to ask for to keep him in Philadelphia no matter what? Or would you be willing to trade him for 2 first-round picks and bet on the 2027 defensive tackle class? Loyalty or cold strategy? Which side are you on in this debate? Leave it in the comments. I really want to read what you think. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back later to update you with the latest Eagles news.